Hello, everyone. I have a guest in studio. She's a candidate for the open seat on the Select Board, and her name is Lisa Rice, and she's here with us this afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in. So you are a candidate for the seat that was vacated by Mr. Spinney, and as we were just saying before we went live on camera, that one of the biggest things coming down the road for anybody who's elected in the town of Grafton is the school budget and budgets in general, and you wanted to open with something specific.
Well, actually, as everyone knows, I work for the school department. I am the literacy coordinator, and for those discussions, I will have to recuse myself from them. I spoke with the attorney, and he said that I should simply just get up from the table and go to the other side of the room. And as I thought about that, I pulled all of the agendas from May. I think I went all the way back to May for the Select Board and really took a look like, how much business will I be missing? And there were like 3 or 4 items, not even meetings, but items on the agenda that I would have to recuse myself for.
Right.
So I look forward to all the other work we do. We talk about the school budget a lot here in town, but we need to make sure that we remember it's 60% of the budget. There's a whole nother 40% of the budget. You know, that's a pretty close split there. So we need to talk about all of the budget.
Right.
And I think the experience on the Finance Committee will certainly help with that.
Well, thank you for throwing that back to me, because I was going to say one of the things that you did in the past was you served on FinCom, and you currently serve on the Library Building Committee.
Yes.
So you're not a rookie coming into this. You have served. If we take the school budget off the table, what other topics that the Select Board might face are you interested in pursuing?
So I think it comes down to the budget, basically, and it's made up of expenses and revenue. So if we look at our expenses as a town, a whole budget, 100% of the budget, I think based on the 7 years I've served, we're pretty lean. You know, do I agree with every single purchase we make? No. But can it be justified? Yes. So I think I would look at that as an area that's pretty tight. What we need to talk about is increasing revenue. And every candidate, I did some research. I went back on Facebook pages for years back for the candidates here, and everyone says we need to be business friendly. We need to bring in more business. And no one ever dives deeper into those details. I would very quickly propose that we hire a grant writer, someone who has tangible goals that are based on money that they're bringing in so that their position's paid for and then some. Our economic development, we need to set goals that are based on financial objectives and make sure that those objectives are being met regularly, not just once a year, but quarterly. We say, how are we doing? What revenue's coming in? And if the revenue's not coming in, we need an honest answer as why it isn't. Is it because the department's holding that back? Is it because we don't have the open space or the zoning? And then it's our job to make sure that we make that happen for people. Because that's the number one thing that comes up. Everybody wants to talk about their taxes.
Right.
And it's made up of 2 things. So we need to really make sure that we are hustling to try to bring business in. We can't just say we're business friendly. We have to walk it. We have to walk the talk.
Right. So is it fair to say that you're interested in pursuing a path of finding ways to increase revenue and then having this position or this person, we haven't named yet,
Yes.
who's going to seek out grants, and that those 2 things working together would help to kind of set the ship right, I guess, for lack of a better phrase?
It would certainly help, and I think it would make people feel feel better about anything once we start or have to talk about an override. If people understand their tax dollars, some sort of visual, like this is your tax bill, here's a pie chart, this much goes to recreation, this much goes to public safety, this much goes to health insurance. People saw how we were spending their money. It all comes down to transparency. I think people would feel a little bit better, and then they know we're out there hustling. You know, we haven't heard anything about the UPS facility in a while. What's going on with that? We need to be much more transparent with people than we are being, especially around their money.
Is it safe to assume that when people serve on the FinCom that the citizens think that you are a financial analyst or have worked in the banking industry, or you've served on FinCom, and when you went into that position, you don't have a financial background. So how does a person serve in that capacity and tackle something as huge as the budget for the town of Grafton?
Well, it took a bit. Like, I think the first budget cycle, I sat at the table and asked a lot of just general questions, or I'd ask afterwards, because I don't have that background. I actually was halfway through an MBA and decided to have children. So I was home, and I went to a few meetings, and they started talking about cuts. It was in 2007 when we talked about we made some cuts at the school level. My child wasn't going to have a computer teacher, and that's when I said, I'm going to get involved in this and figure this out. So it was a lot of learning. I worked with a lot of great people on that committee who were patient, but then it got to a point where I wasn't afraid to ask some tough questions and offer solutions, and I think then I just found my groove in it, because I think everyone can figure it out if it's just explained to them, and that's what we need to do to people. We don't need to hand them the 375 budget book. We need to put it nice and concise for everybody, and then they can understand what the line items mean.
Yeah, because that's a good point, because I find that people want everything broken down into those bite-sized nuggets.
Yes.
I don't know of a lot of people that will sit through any televised meeting from start to finish. And it appears, at least in my world, that we're getting more and more requests for just give me the facts, ma'am, nothing else.
Yeah.
Break it down, break it down, break it down.
Yeah.
When you sit on the select board and you are faced with infrastructure, paving roads, you're faced with, as we said, the school budget, but we'd take that off the table. Library, you sit on the library building committee, and there's a lot of angst in town over whether or not we even need a library. I'm sure there's people out there that believe that, but that's a tough nut to sell, I think, right? And how have you overcome those conversations when you have them?
Well, the voters spoke.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what ultimately the select board's there to do, the work of the voter and the vote of the people. So it was a close vote, and but it's happening. So my work on that committee is to make sure that the budget is lining up. That's what I enjoy talking about. Are we on time? Are we on our timeline? Are we meeting our deadlines? How are we saving money? And luckily the bids came in much lower than we thought.
Isn't that nice?
It is very nice. Does that ever happen on any projects? You know, I sat on the library building committee when we just did the renovations for the handicapped accessible, and that didn't come in under budget. So to be able to have that say, and also just say, this is what I'm hearing from people. I talk to a lot of people over the course of the day because of my work. This is what I'm hearing from people. How can we talk to people about this? Can we put a blurb in the Grafton News about where we're at? Can we talk at town meeting? I just brought that up at Monday. Maybe we should let people know the status of this project. Just get up and give 2 sentences. This is what the budget, that we just signed the contract. This is when we're going to put a shovel in the ground. You know, that's what I think I'm bringing to the table is this. We need to be transparent, and we need to open up communication.
So if we take the school budget off the table, and we've already discussed the library, what other things what other things are you interested in pursuing if elected?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a Girl Scout leader for 14 years. I just had my last Girl Scout meeting in June, now that my children are gone. And we did community service. It was just community service, community service. So I would like to make sure that all those factions of our community have a voice and they understand. Right now, we are spending a lot of time talking about how the Board of Selectmen work and the things that they've been doing versus what they're doing. And that's the shift I'd like to see us make. I'd like us to be fully transparent. I'd like someone to call the municipal center and get a phone call back. You know, I spoke to someone yesterday who said they called Friday. They have, as of last night, still hadn't gotten a phone call. I'd like us to take survey data to improve our services to people so that they feel like they're getting what they can get for their money.
So you're talking about steps above and beyond the live or recorded meetings.
Absolutely. I just did a Facebook Live event on Friday to kick off. First time I've ever done that.
I saw it.
Oh, good. Thank you. I wanted to kick it off with that, and the first time that we did it. And I truly believe people just want the Facebook blurb. So maybe once a week, as I mentioned, we just say the town of Grafton throws out a blurb, or we had a select board meeting last night. These were the 5 things that you need to know. I know you do that video, and I love watching that, but that should be for all of our meetings that we do, and it shouldn't fall just on you. The municipal center's right there. Everyone, I'm sure, could just walk over here and do a quick blurb on Friday recap for 5 to 10 minutes on what happened over the course of the week.
Right.
We post something maybe at the library. We meet people where they're at. Where are people going?
I find that despite the efforts that we take in town to get information out, and it's a team effort, like it's not all just me, there are still people out there who say,
I didn't know.
I didn't. We're gonna be tackling that for the rest of our lives,
Yes.
I think. And it's, how do you engage those people? Who do they just look the other way, or what other things have we overlooked?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I mentioned, I have daughters who are 20 and 18, and they're off at school. But they want to vote. This is their town. They grew up here. So I'm trying very hard. Win or lose this campaign, I'd like to have some lasting impacts of how I'm campaigning. And I'm trying very hard to engage those voters by saying, oh, yeah, this is an absentee ballot. This is how it works. I would love to see us do something on Saturdays when kids come home, maybe 4 Saturdays before elections, when not Tuesday nights staying open late. The kids aren't home then. Let them do it on Saturdays and do their absentee ballots when they come home on Saturday. So I'm trying very hard to engage that group of people who don't feel that they have any skin in the game, right? They're not paying taxes. They're off somewhere else studying, but this is still your community. You should be paying attention. So I'm working very hard on that piece. I got a text just the other day saying, you'll be the first person I've ever voted for. Like, that is, win or lose, I feel like I'm a winner. You know, that is, I'm trying hard to engage that population of people. Everyone else in the age categories, they tend to get engaged when it's something that's important to them. Let's make it important to them. Right? Like, let's start pointing out the things, this is important because, not just we're getting through our agenda here at the meeting, but this is why this affects you and you need to know these things.
Right. Is it fair to say that schools don't teach civics anymore?
No, they definitely teach it. I know that my children, although they went to Blackstone Valley Tech, they registered at school, and I know that these college kids who are away are registered voters. So it is happening in the schools.
Right.
It's just a matter of understanding the process of how an absentee ballot works.
Right.
And that there is such a thing as a 67 or 68 cent stamp that you put on. And, it's life lessons that you're teaching them along the way. So that's a population of people that I think that if we could hook very early on, they will become involved and informed as they grow older.
Right. But it's not just simply how the electoral process works, but also, as you said, how does the select board do its job and all those other things. We're getting close to the end of our segment, so I'm going to let you.
Quick.
It does, doesn't it? I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk to the viewers at home and kind of put your position into words and ask for the vote. And this is your opportunity.
All right,
So
great.
go
Thank
ahead.
you so much.
You're welcome.
So here we go. Thank you. Perfect. So as I mentioned, I did some research and looked on the Facebook pages of past candidates, and we're all saying the same thing. You know, we're open-minded. We're here to listen to the people. We want to do what's best and do the work for you. So let's just assume that we're all in it for that reason. But I want to give you some tangible things that I hope to do for you. I hope that this becomes a way, a vehicle for us to get more involved in our government, and by being more transparent. And those ways will be the weekly blurbs that we can put out to you, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's through this channel or whether it's at the library. We post things at the senior center. A quick blurb of this is a recap of the week of what's happening in your town. And then if there is something that piques your interest, we can connect you with how to get that information. I do believe in the economic development, and not just to say it. I would like to see us to get a grant writing position. I'd like us to have our economic development position grow and have measurable quarterly outcomes that move us forward to not always being in this 5-year cycle of an override. So those are the things that I would immediately look to do. I'd like to see the Board of the Select Board,
Either
sorry.
one works.
Yeah, the Select Board move from the nuts and bolts, day-to-day things, the mundane tasks that they have to do, to becoming a visionary for our town and doing the work for the people. So that's something that I would work on right away as well. So I would appreciate your vote on Tuesday, October 29th.
All right. My guest in studio has been Lisa Rice. She's a candidate for the open seat for the Select Board. And thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was a wonderful chat.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm seated in conference room F this afternoon with a guest. She's a candidate for the open select board seat here in the town of Grafton. She has a long-standing history of service to the town of Grafton, and my guest is Donna Stock. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it. So, as I said, you have spent a long time serving the town of Grafton, school committee, high school building committee. You're currently on the Disability Commission. But you stepped away from the school committee for a while. Mm-hmm. What motivated you to come back to the role of possible select board member?
So I like to say community service is in my DNA, and have been doing that here in the community for nearly 30 years that I've been residing here. I did some professional work where I was served on 2 different boards. One was a STEM-focused board for engineering schools across the country, and the other one was a national higher education board. Also worked on the Women's Initiative in United Way here and helped to launch that a number of years ago. So my community service continued. It just wasn't, it was focused on Central Mass and as I said, my profession.
I see. So anybody who is familiar with you is probably just going to make the assumption that your number one focus is going to be the schools. But if we took that 800-pound gorilla out of the room, if you are fortunate enough to be elected, what are some other things that you might be focused on?
So I realize in this role I'd have to serve all 17 departments here in the town. So I'm eager to learn as much as I can about those and how they function and how this community comes together for town services. One of the things I'd like to do is bring our community to the table. As I've gone around, we've been posting these storyboards and asking people what they care about and what they'd like to see. And one of the things that was kind of standing out to me was getting youth engaged, or our younger adults here in the community. And I think that's something I did when I was on this, an active school volunteer, was trying to get a lot of other people to come and volunteer in one capacity or another. So I think we need to broaden the outreach that we do have and use the various media opportunities we do have as well to really engage people of all ages and make certain that they're informed and that they find that they have a voice at the table when we're dealing with very, comprehensive or specific town issues.
So getting youth to do anything
I've been
can be
actually
a challenge.
No, I've been actually pretty encouraged by the young people that have helped support my campaign so far. And I work in an environment that shows the interest that young people have in the future of our world. And I see it all the time when I see these budding engineers and scientists and other young people who really want to engage in what it is that is going to affect their futures.
Is there any specific mechanism of government that you think that you need to tackle? Is there anything that just sticks out to you and say, there's got to be a better way of doing blank?
So I'm not familiar with all the processes and what are here, inherent in each of the departments. But one of the things that I've done in my profession is to look at where our budget dollars are being allocated, whether or not we're getting the return on investment that we would, and that's people and also other resources that we utilize, and make certain that we ask people, what is it that are your pain points, or what are the things that are bothering you, and is there a way to improve that so that the time that they need to spend on duties that they'd want to spend time on is available to them. So I'm curious as to see whether or not any analysis is done along those lines. We do a lot of data analytics at work too. And that's been on not a lot of different factors. So it helps us to inform our decisions and help us to form a strategy going forward. So as I said, I'd like it here at the town to just help me inform my decisions.
That was a great phrase, pain point.
Yep.
I've never heard that before, but I could imagine the senior citizens in towns, their biggest pain point is probably their taxes. And, so that would be a challenge for any person on the board, dealing with our aging populations and their tax bills and the challenges that the town of Grafton faces moving forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, that's a big concern. I've heard it as I've moved around and talked to people throughout town. I think we have to do what we can to diversify our tax base. I said one of the things that I appreciate most about this town is our support of our local businesses. And I love the effort that started last year, which was Shop Small. I'd like to see those efforts continued. And I'd also like to do what we can to encourage more small businesses that have maybe a unique characteristic to them come to this town. And do what we can to promote the businesses that we have here. We also have some space in obviously our business parks and in our light commercial areas, and continue to do what the town's been doing to try to attract businesses to come into those too. So I think what we can do to lessen any future tax burden on all citizens would be appreciated.
What is your perception of the problems facing bringing new businesses into town?
Route 9 in Shrewsbury. We don't have a Route 9. We don't have a corridor like that. I know there's been a lot of effort for economic development in here, and it's been in existence for a number of years, that brings people together. I know that we're actively trying to identify some, big components. I know the Wyman Gordon land is up for negotiation, and that hopefully somebody would come in and add to the tax base there. But as I said, I think if we can do more to bring in some of these smaller businesses, it might help with our tax base.
Is there a formula for how many smaller businesses versus one big one? Because I often wonder about that.
I honestly don't know.
How many antique shops, how many dog bakeries versus, something big that'll take up that Wyman Gordon space? I imagine the number is astronomical, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and as I said, the industrial parks that we have set aside, the land that's there, those are good opportunities for businesses to come in. And the more vibrant those become, and the more, the infrastructure's in place, we just need to find the companies that want to, either relocate there or come into town.
So what are people telling you about the town of Grafton and what they want to see when you meet with them?
I don't know. People have been pretty positive about what's going on in the community. They're happy that I'm stepping forward, that they recognize that I've been an advocate for the schools in the past, and that they anticipate that I'll be that same advocate for the town now. Honestly, as I said, primarily the budget is one, and marijuana shops is another. But as I said, most preserving our land has been part of it. I've as I said, these storyboards that we've asked for comments on. People are looking for my more bike paths, and I just think of some, and as I said, preserving some of the land that we have here, and we're doing a great job with the Grafton Land Trust, but we don't want to be 100% built out, I don't imagine, and I think we've done a good job of preserving some of those things, but also making certain that we're taking advantage of some of the opportunities we can to incorporate, other aspects of that into the community.
So the idea of a storyboard fascinates me. When you get people into a room, and I'm assuming they've got Post-it notes and they're hitting the wall?
It's just,
okay.
There's just 2 prompts.
Sure, okay. So are you finding that their responses are quite varied, or are you getting big clumps of the same thing and then a few odds and ends over here, or?
Quite varied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I said, I found the youth one to be a consistent one. And I thought, making certain that we have affordable options for people to stay in town, for young adults to be able to afford to live here. And getting people involved in some of the decision-making, trying to encourage that, some of the economic development and decision-making, what we can do to encourage that voice to come to the table, as well as continue to have everyone else's voices heard.
So the school committee has some youth involvement on it. Are you thinking that something similar to that might look good for the select board?
I think it would.
That's great. One question that popped into my head was, does Grafton still teach civics?
Yep.
They do? Yeah. Okay. Why don't we ever hear about that? I think if you ask the average person on the street, they think that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Constitution Day.
Constitution Day.
Yeah.
Good. That's good to know. That's good to know. Other than business and the budget, how do you feel about the way information is distributed in town? Because a lot of people think business is done behind closed doors.
So I'll tell you one thing, and I recognized this when I was on the school committee. Every elected school committee member across the state is required to go to a workshop training. And it's typically one day, although you can break it up in segments and travel around the state and take them at different times that they're offered. And then you get a handbook. And there are 5 major roles of a school committee member, and every single school committee member across the state has the same information. They have the same access to the information, and they know what's in or out of bounds in terms of what their responsibilities are. There's also the Mass Association of School Committees, which you can call for any reference on anything that you encounter while you're a school committee member. I was very surprised, and I asked about this years ago, that the Mass Municipal Association didn't do the same thing. And I'm in the process right now at work. We're actually having the training tomorrow of doing this playbook where everybody gets the same information. Everybody has the same access to this information, and we know what we can and can't do. And I'd like to see the same thing for the select board, is we know what the definitions are, and then making certain that everybody understands that, agrees to that, and that we follow what it is that we're supposed to do. And also provide, how does that then, the information that we get, disseminated to other people who are interested. I know the website does a good job of posting certain information in terms of meeting minutes and agendas and other reports, et cetera. But this really understanding who you are as an elected official serving in this capacity and making certain that we all follow within those guidelines.
So the town administrator and the assistant town administrator have programs available to them as municipal officials, and people in town who serve on boards and committees have to take that little open book test online for ethical training. But the concept of a playbook for members of the select board sounds like an interesting plan.
And as I said, the fact that every single member across the state that served on a school committee went through the exact same training was, it was very helpful to begin with. And as I said, to have access to that information at your fingertips was also very helpful.
Do you think that nobody's thought of it up to this point, or that there might be some resistance to something new?
I don't know. I'd like to say, why can't we do it and start it? I mean, if it works for our community, that's great. If others want to, replicate it, that's great too. I mean, we wouldn't be doing anything different from what other select boards are required to do. So it would just be putting it in a format that would be, everybody understands.
So as a candidate for select board, what was the first thing you did today for your campaign?
Opened up my Facebook page and my Gmail page, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you getting a lot of activity?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we've gone 12 minutes just chatting, so I can give you the last 3 minutes to talk to the voters at home and ask for their vote, and you can talk about anything you'd like to talk about.
Thank you,
So
Bob.
I'll turn the floor over to you, and you can take it away.
Thank you. You heard me say earlier that community service is in my DNA. It's something that has been an important component of my life, both personally and professionally. And as I said, I think the time is right for me to step back into the local environment and contribute to this position as elected select board member. I've lived here in the community for 30 years. I've raised 4 children. I value the experience that I had here as a school committee member, here as a parent volunteer, here as a community volunteer, paired with my professional experiences. Both of those have combined to put me in a position where I am today, in a position of leadership in my field, and I'm hoping to bring those same leadership qualities here to the select board. I am, as I said, I love information. I used to say that. I just want to be informed so that I'm making a decision that once I've given all the information. I'd like to see that continue on the select board. I'd like to expand that information-driven activity to as many community members as possible. This is a great community. We have a lot of diverse people within the community, a lot of diverse activities for people to involve themselves in, and I encourage people to do that. Encourage people to get involved in the political process, encourage people to vote. This is a special election on October 29th. I'm hoping that the turnout would be a good turnout for this one. It's an important election. And as I said, I'm asking for your vote on that Tuesday, October 29th, and I'd be honored to serve as your select board member.
Great. So I think it's my turn to say that these programs with the 2 candidates for the select board are going to be featured on Grafton Community Television, not on the government side because they haven't actually been elected yet. And those will also be available on the streaming app and the VOD player on the Grafton Community Television YouTube page. So lots of different ways to see the 2 candidates and see how they reacted to questions and how they presented themselves, and ultimately the decision is up to you. So I'd like to thank my guest, and she is a candidate for the open select board seat here in the town of Grafton, and she is Donna Stock. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.